Well, it's my turn to talk this week, and it's called What a Week It Was. And what a week it was. What a year it was. The last 10 years, what years they've been. My goodness. And here we are, we're still standing. The world is changing as we speak, but everything we know is in divine order. Easter Sunday, for me, reminds me of something quite quaint. When I was 14 or 15, I was at the Methodist Sunday School and we used to have Bible Eisteddfods. Sounds terrible now, doesn't it? But we did. We'd meet every month along the coastline of northwest Tasmania. And there we are, we'd be asked questions on the Bible. Of course, I took the Bible very literally then. And I remember the prize would have been a beautiful, big, huge Bible. And I know, Sheila, you've got one which you've left in my care at the moment. It's a huge Bible. And I thought that would be nice to have. Anyway, I got to the second person, and the question that failed me was, what did the angel do when he rolled back the stone from the tomb of Jesus? I thought, well, who cares what the angel did? What's that got to do with anything spiritual? For goodness gracious me. Anyway, the answer was there. He sat on it. And I thought, oh, this is getting out of control. This is silly. Anyway, I failed the big prize. But years later, when Reverend Sylvia and I were doing radio together, I'd just taken over a couple of hours and I decided to do a spiritual program. And on that, I'd talk to different ministers and different people, yogi people, different interfaith people. It was quite an illuminating time for me. And I thank you, Reverend Sylvia, for putting that into my orbit. It changed my life. Anyway, one day I was thinking, who can I have as a guest? And I was playing piano at Forest Hill Chase, and there was a man there. He was a chaplain, Salvation Army chaplain. So I had him on, and then he told me about someone else, a Sergeant Major Wendy Munro, who was a very, very strong lady. And so I thought, okay, we'll have her on. And of course, with a name like Munro, I couldn't help but wonder, you know, Hollywood and glamour and all that sort of stuff. Well, was I in for a shock? This was a very big lady, very strong lady, and I thought, oh, there's no nonsense here. I better behave myself and ask her the right questions. So I brought this story up about how I'd lost this beautiful prize, and I said, I told her the story, and I said, what a silly answer. Jesus sat on it. And she said, I could have made a sermon out of that. I thought, what? And she said, yes, he rolled the stone back and he sat on it, a sense of achievement. Well, was I put in my place, as I am many times, but that was an amazing one. She laughed afterwards, of course, which softened the blow a bit. But anyway, sense of achievement. And that's what Easter Sunday is, a sense of achievement. It's symbolic of the things we've overcome. We call it resurrection, which is just moving on from all those things that are stopping us. St. Paul said in Corinthians, when I was a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I grew up, I put away childish things. That doesn't mean childish in a childish way, because we want to go through that stage of our childhood. We love it. It could mean any stage of our life where something we've outgrown, but it's not easy to throw off. But we do, because the pain of putting up with the old material way we've been living is too much. So then this change to the new can be gradual. It can happen very quickly, but rarely is it without drama, as we know. Change happens as part of our soul evolution, whether we like it or not, and we go kicking and screaming into the next level, as I am as I'm getting older, and possibly some of you are too. Nothing we can do about it, but we have our teachings, the powerful teachings. And if we believe those teachings, we can move through the next stage of life with grace. From his poem, The Chambered Nautilus, Oliver Wendell Holmes, who was born in 1809 and lived to 1894. He wrote, and I'm going to read it, "Build me more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift seasons roll. Leave thy low vaulted past, let each new temple, nobler than the last, shut thee from heaven with a dome more vast, till those at length are free, leaving their outgrown shell by life's unresting sea." So change happens. Now we've gone through what they call Holy Week. It's a pretty heavy week for Jesus, the way shower, but it's a symbolic week for him and for us. Unity is culturally Christian, spiritually eclectic. And we know that behind every religion there is the same basic truth. All boils down to the golden rule. Let's have a look. Monday, Jesus cleanses the temple of the money changers. Metaphysically, we clean ourselves of dishonest thoughts of materialism and greed. We are the temple of the living God, and like Peter, we build our temple on faith, that faith. And we might get knocked off the perch a lot, but eventually we get to what Ernest Holmes calls established consciousness. Nothing can knock us off our perch. Look, it still may for a bit, but we know when we get ourselves together, we have established consciousness. This doesn't happen overnight, but it has to happen. And isn't it interesting how some of the visionaries that we've read about, from St. Francis to Bernadette of Lourdes, Fatima, and especially the Roman Catholic mystics, most of them were told to build a temple. So their higher self, however it appeared to them, as it was the Virgin Mary or Jesus or an angel, build a temple on this rock, the rock of faith. That is our body temple, and it is our faith and our rock. Tuesday, Jesus passes the barren fig tree. It was breakfast time, he was hungry, and the disciples were hungry, and there was nothing on the tree, so he got upset. Fair enough. But there's more meaning to that, and I'm not going to go into that meaning, and people are still arguing about what that means, but there's many meanings to it. He goes into the synagogue to preach. And I wonder if it was the same synagogue as he went into when he was about 12. There, we believe he met Hillel, one of the most powerful high priests, very, very wise man, and Jesus amazed the rabbis and the priests with his knowledge at that age. But here he is in his 30s now, and he goes to preach, and his authority is questioned. I suppose times have changed. Generations of priests have moved on, and who's this guy coming in here telling us? And Jesus said, I come not to change the law, but to live it and expand it. Forget the letter of the law, we want the spirit of the law. And we know what the spirit of the law is. It's love, which is the power of the month next month. Just to remind us all, Luke 22, verse 37. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy soul and with all thy mind. Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. Because we are it in expression. Some people can't handle that, but we are. We're it in expression, probably the highest form of expression on the planet. But we didn't invent the power that we use. That's a humbling thought. We didn't invent it. We're distributors of it. Wednesday, a quieter day for Jesus, but behind the scenes, the religious leaders are conspiring against him. Something's going on. They're not happy with what he's doing. And we all know that feeling. We can sense it when something's going on, can't we? You can feel it. But during this time, he relaxes. And Matthew 26, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poised it on his head as he sat by. As I think Leslie was talking about, it's probably one of the Marys. In Mark 4, this ointment is called spikenard. It was one of the oils used in the Temple of Jerusalem. It's a beautiful smell, but it has other therapeutic uses as well. This oil was reserved for this deep-seated grief or emotional pain, and more symbolically in palliative care. It was used to ease the transition from life to death. And it must have been a terrible time, because we look at the medicines we've got now that can ease us. We are so blessed. There are some groups that don't want to use medicines. I think they've changed a bit now, but I know some people that were in some groups that would not use medicine. But to me, doctors are God's in expression. They've invented it for us. And as we move on in life, we need it. I look at me, I've got an appointment next week, I've got an appointment the week after for teeth, I've got a skin check the week after. This is going to keep me going, touch wood, for another 10 years. And this helps us store up those treasures in heaven. It keeps us alive. And while we're alive, look what we can do with our newfound consciousness, our resurrected consciousness. We can use it for the good of all. Judas complained to Jesus. He said, look, you're wasting the money. We could sell this oil and give it to the poor. And Jesus said, there will be poor always. That might sound a bit callous, but he means poor in consciousness. That's all. And eventually we're here to learn how to be rich in consciousness. And I give thanks to those wonderful early Unity writers like Catherine Pondon, Pray and Grow Rich and all those other things, which are a bit, politically not correct these days. You wouldn't say too much of that. But they were abundant teachings, a teaching of the abundant life. And Jesus was a thief in this way. He was trying to rob us of what we can use in our life for our own good. How are we going to be any good if we're going freezing and starving and not well? We look after ourselves as best we can so that we can do the best we can. It's also in the Bible. If you want to read about this, the Song of Solomon, it's a luscious story. It's a beautiful story, sensual and rich in meaning on all levels. Now, it's on this Wednesday that Jesus agrees to betray Jesus. Judas agrees to betray Jesus, that's right. So we move on. Thursday. Big day. Jesus gathers his disciples in the upper room in Jerusalem for the Passover meal. Here they partook of bread and wine. When we first come into Unity, I think a lot of us are really happy to quickly get that metaphysical Bible dictionary and look up all these things. I know I did. They've all got a meaning. It's one of the most beautiful books, and The Revealing Word is the other one. I suggest you get them. I give it a plug every time I can. Here they partook, as I said, of bread and wine, and symbolically, bread represents universal substance. Our daily bread is the substance of spirit, mind and body. We're it. It's what keeps us going on all levels. Some daily bread is in the form of food, and it's also in our words, as revealed in prayer and our meditation. And that beautiful meditation was full of it today. Wine represents the vitality that forms a connecting link between body and soul. Jesus was first baptized with water. His first baptism, when he was 30, was with John the Baptist. Charles Fillmore writes, "When John the Baptist baptized with water, he washed away the errors of an external character. It does not enter the subconscious. It takes something more powerful than water to purify our outer conditions, accumulated by our soul in many incarnations." Yes, incarnations and reincarnation is mentioned in the Bible if you look for it. Charles Fillmore talks about it in his way too. This is represented by wine. It takes effort, and sometimes great effort. And as we know, we've all had dark nights of the soul, some more dark than others. But because we live in a world of duality, it's not going to be forever. What comes up must come down, and everything is according to the law of cause and effect. Everything changes, and we are here to keep balance. So what was once dark eventually will become light. And isn't it interesting, for me anyway, the wedding at Cana? Jesus performed his first miracle, turning water into wine. This is symbolic of the blending of our thoughts of the outer and inner, the wedding of those thoughts, which creates, as I said again, the established consciousness. Friday, I don't want to dwell on it. That was Good Friday, supposedly good. That's the day Jesus is crucified. And if we look up the meaning of crucifixion, the metaphysical meaning of this is the crossing out in consciousness of the errors that have become fixed states of mind. The mind's surrender or death of the whole personality in order that the Christ mind may be expressed in all its fullness. And again, on that same radio program, I interviewed an Anglican priest, and we were discussing that Mel Gibson film about Jesus. I forget what it was called now. And it was the most graphic film. They were so literal about how Jesus was crucified. And I said to this priest, I said, that's terrible. You know, I don't even want to look. He said, yes, but it was redemptive suffering. I thought, what? That's terrible. But we actually do suffer when we leave things behind sometimes. We don't want to let go of certain things. So we do suffer. But there again, there is light. It's interesting also to note that this one presence and one power, we are it in action. As I said, we didn't invent it, but Jesus also wrote in 11:25 in the book of John, I am the resurrection and the life. They that believe in me, though they were dead, yet shall they live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Believe you this. What is amazing about this saying is Jesus said that before he died. He said it at the raising of Lazarus. He was already resurrected in consciousness. And whatever was going to happen was going to happen. It didn't make that much difference to Jesus. And when he was crucified in Mark 15, and the veil of the temple was rent from top to bottom. Symbolically, we are the temple, and the veil is over us, not around God. The veil is fitting of our spiritual ignorance. And with every new revelation, we discover a new truth. That veil grows thinner. The truth has always been there. And gradually we become aware of it as we process through life with all its blessings and challenges. And as you may know, I love these little verses that pop up in the Bible from time to time that could mean anything. I came across one, it was only yesterday, but I thought I'll throw this in. Mark 27, verse 52. And the minute the veil from the temple split and Jesus died, and the graves were opened, and many of the bodies of the saints which slept arose. I wonder if that means, well, you've got your own thoughts, and if you can meditate on that. I was thinking, because I haven't had much time to think about it, but that's all those ideas that have been locked in our subconscious. They're out. They've been risen. We can deal with them. Goodbye. Goodbye, and thank you for the experience. Now, like a caterpillar changing into a butterfly, or the phoenix rising from its own ashes, we are here and we move on. As Good Friday was symbolic of a time of crossing out, so Easter Sunday is a time for rising up. That is symbolically now. What a powerful time we think of this is now. So we bring up our consciousness to a higher form of expression, a more expanded, I don't like to say up or rise up, expand I think is a better word, into who we really are. A more individualized expression of the one presence and one power, in whom we live, move and have our being, and always will be. So I hope I've left you with something to think about. The rest of the day, we can do what we like, but the symbolism of this day is so powerful, and so it is. Thank you.